Hello and welcome to Byte, and welcome to the third and final of our Towny tutorials. This one will be how to set up a town for those server admins who want to use Towny, how to configure all the different settings in the plugins folder, and just generally how to get it all set up working for your players. Okay, I've got a couple of windows open here ready. I have my bukkit server, as you can see, all the files here, including the plugins folder. I also have the website here. Now, when I first started, Towny was on the bukkit website. Easy to find all the different downloads. Then it suddenly disappeared. I have no idea why it disappeared, much to the panic of many a server owner, I think. But it has since reappeared. But it's on the developer's website itself. So if you need it, go to palmergames.com. Don't worry about the Towny; it'll always forward you there. I'll put a link in the description below as well, so you can just click on that to get there. Once here, you can see they do a couple of other plugins, but the one we're interested in today is Towny, and I'll be working through their little guide. They've also got a little guide here for you to be able to sort of run through. So what we'll do, we're on 1.72 at the moment. So as you can see here, we've got the Towny news. We've got 1.72 support with this version of Towny. So if I just click there, and then what we can do is we can download the latest version. Here we are. Excuse me. Okay, download. And it takes it back to Bukkit. How does that work? Oh, so I clicked the wrong thing. Okay, yeah, I'm downloading Bukkit there. Okay, what am I looking to? Okay, here we go. We want the dev. Here goes. Here's Towny jar, and we'll just click on this to download. So we'll click and save as. We'll save that to the desktop quickly. Okay, now we've got the Towny jar. Towny jar file. We'll need two more plugins. I'll quickly just go here on this tree here. You can quickly click on the downloads to take you back to the main area where they put all their plugins that they develop on here. What we'll be looking at is Questioner and Towny Chat. Now, Towny Chat's got a bit of an error at the moment, so I won't worry about that. But basically, you put that in your file if you wanted to put prefixes and suffixes onto your names in the chat boxes, depending on what town you're in. So I won't worry about that now, but basically it's just drop in. I'll run through the Towny configuration of it anyway, but I'll leave that out for the moment until they've fixed it. Questioner, however, is quite important, so if I go in here and download Questioner, what this does, does what it says on the tin really, asks you a question. If, for example, you own a town, or you don't own a town, so if someone else owns a town and you're wandering around with that one, and the mayor decides to charge all of his residents £1 million a day, and he adds you to the town, without Questioner, you will automatically join the town and get billed for the pleasure. So this is quite an important one. Basically, if someone adds you to the town, it will pop up with a question and ask you to accept or deny access to the town, so you can control your own destiny. You don't get dragged along for the ride and stuffed into someone's high-paying town. Right, with those two, we've got all we need really, so let's drag that out of the way. Okay, here's my Bukkit plugin folder. So here's my main server folder. Into the plugins. As you can see, we've got a Vault folder and an Economy folder. Another one you'd also ideally have would be a permissions folder, such as permissions plugin, I should say, a bit like Group Manager or Permissions Bukkit, or one of the other ones that is compatible. All I do is drag those two jar files into the plugins folder. There we are. And then I'll just go back to my server and run the run.bat. And this will fire up, here we go, this will fire up the server and load the two plugins. So if I go to plugins here, you should see, as it loads the Towny version, you should see Towny folder appear. There we are. And it's done. There we go. Questioner's loaded. Towny's loaded. Now we've started up. I'll immediately stop it again. There we go. Because ideally you shouldn't really be altering plugin settings while the server is running. Some you can if you've got a reload, but on Byte I find Towny's quite large now, so it's not really stable to reload, so I do all the changes when it's shut down. Okay, if I pop into here, you'll see we've got 4 folders. I'll run through them from the top just quickly, but the main one we're looking at is settings. Backup. You can set this in the config file. This will back up all the local data if you're using flatfile into here, so you can specify certain days. There you go. That's today's date. So that's a zip file. If you wanted to roll back, you could use that. You could just extract that and roll back to another day in case everything went hideously wrong. Data, obviously, you've got in here. You've got all the town blocks. You've got the worlds, the towns, all the data that's stored in flat file format. I'll run through the 2 formats you can use in just a moment. Logs, that's not pretty obvious, isn't it? That's all the logs and what's going on and who's typed what and etc. And the main folder settings. So if I go into there, we've got 3 YML files. These are the configuration files you'd use to change the settings. Strangely, I'll go from the bottom here and go up because the config's the main one. If I double click on Towny Perms, you'll see we've got quite a large selection of permissions here. Now, here we go. The nomad permission set covers players not in any town. So these are all the commands that, or the permissions, I should say, that a normal person has. On joining the town, they also get these permissions here. So they can claim, unclaim, sell, set perms in plots, etc., etc. So as soon as they join, they can manage their own plot. Whereas the nomad can join, and that's about it really, and list towns and list nations, but they can't claim plots until they've actually joined a town. Further down, we've also got the mayor, you see. So this one allows you to set different permissions for the mayor. So if you wanted them to have, as well, you wanted the mayor to have a nice hat, if I just add in here, essentials.hat, if I had the Essentials plugin, that is, this would give him the ability to wear a hat in the Essentials plugin. So you can actually add permissions for other plugins into the Towny setup, which is quite handy. And again, down here you can see the town assistants, and they can toggle and switch and all sorts of things here. But you can also add in Towny claim.own town as well, to allow the ranks and the assistants to actually build anywhere in the town, not just in their plot like the mayor can. But yes, you can alter all these to your own specifications, and also, as I say there, give permissions to other plugins within the promotion system of Towny, which is quite handy. Yeah, that could be quite good. I need to implement something like that on Byte as well. Obviously, be careful altering these because they are YML files. If in doubt, bear with me a sec while I quickly search. If I quickly look in here, type in YML parser, jam it in here. This is a parser. This helps you edit these files. If I just quickly do select all and copy, and then do select all and just paste it into here, do space, do a minus, and you can see it comes out with output, which is exactly what it should do. If you do something silly like literally just put an extra space, that's going to corrupt the entire file, you see. So and it's going to come up with lots of errors. So if you ever edit these files and you don't, or you start it up, I should say, and it doesn't work properly, paste it into one of these parsers, and then you can pop through and have a look. See column 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just correct that, and that will come back. If it outputs here okay, then it will work when you load the plugin, depending on what you've deleted or added. That might still have an error, but just be aware that it's very, very sensitive editing these files, which I always recommend before editing. Take a I usually do a copy and a paste just to create a copy. So if everything goes hideously wrong, you can delete it and then use that and rename it back to Towny Perms to restore your previous versions. Okay, so there's the Towny Perms file. I shut that down. I'll save that. That's the Essentials hat change I did. Okay, but I've got a copy, so if I totally balls that up completely, which I have done in the past, I can restore it. Let's have a look at the English file. Now, this is all the wording, all the messages that will pop up during the game. So if you look down here, you've got help, So if you type help in game, this is what will come up, Towny general help. So if you want to name it, for example, my server's called Byte, so I just put Byte. There we go. So if you type help in game, it'll come up with Byte general Towny help. And you can do the same with all the help files here, and you can also do it with the resident control panel. And if I keep going down here, you've got message nations. You've even got the automatic messages here. You can change any of these to customize what your players see to your server. I think it says at the top here, with a big warning, you must retain spacing in the texts. If the text begins or ends with a space, it must remain that way. So you've got to be very careful. So there you go. There's a space there or a dot. You've got to get it exactly the same. Otherwise, you might find yourself having loads of errors again. So once more, make sure you've taken a backup of this before you go and save it, like I just did there without taking a backup. Hopefully it'll still work though, so that's all good. I didn't make too much change. Right, the main file we'll be looking at is the config file. Now, this is the one that contains all the data with regards to town setting up, etc., etc. So here we are. We'll look through this. First of all, you've got the language file we're going to use. That's the one we've just been editing here. You can also, if there's Spanish and you want Spanish, you can just change that to whatever you like. Underneath, we've got permission nodes. This is about the same as the townyperms, I think. We've got the same few bits here, so I won't run through those again. You can also set town creation to admin only, or nation creation to admin only. So if you didn't want everybody creating nations, you could just keep the little quotation marks and just set that to true. Spelt correctly, of course. There we are. And that would allow anybody to create towns, but only admins to create nations. So it's quite customizable. We've also got the levels here. These are the modifiers that affect the towns themselves. So the town level here. Okay, this is the default one. It's called ruins. So if there's no one in there, I think you've got one limit, number of residents 0. Upkeep modifier. This is if you're charging upkeep from a nation, it's 1. The name postfix is settlement. If you're the mayor of the town, you'll be called a hermit. So it's a fairly. Oh no, I'm sorry, I've gone a bit too far up here. See, these little dots limit the towns. So here we go. We've got town level. The first one is ruins. This is with no residents, so no one's in the town. It's got 1 block limit, so it's literally just the home block, and there's no postfix. And the mayor prefix is spirit, but I don't know how it can be because there's no one here. So get 1 resident, and your ruin will turn into a settlement with the mayor prefix of hermit. If you haven't got Towny chat, this won't show up. If you have got Towny chat, that will show up before the name. But if you type in /t or /res to look at the town details or look at the resident details, that will appear in there anyway, so you can see that anyway without the Towny chat. The next one, if you get 2 residents, you're now a hamlet, and your mayor prefix will change to chief. It's quite a good fun leveling up like this. Yeah. So the more people you get, the higher your status, as it were. Note, if you do change these, you've got the trailing space afterwards, otherwise it will mess up your name. So again, if you edit these, you can edit these to your own settings, but just be aware to keep the same formatting. Town claim new defaults. These are the default settings for the worlds. It's best to get these set up before you start claiming anything, because these do affect what you can actually do. Okay, town here, default public true. If you want anybody to be able to join a town automatically as soon as it's created, set that to true. If you want them to be private just to the mayor and he's got to invite people, set that to false. You've also got default open, which is a second part of this. It allows you to t-spawn and to join. Limits the maximum blocks a town can buy. So this one, you can actually purchase more blocks to add on without getting more people, which is quite good. So you can perhaps add on 10 maximum. There we go. I'll just do that. So now our town, if there's only 1 person in it, can actually buy 10 more blocks as well. So maximum number of plots any single resident can own, which is quite handy. You can probably put that quite low, so you can have 4, just so one person with lots of money doesn't waltz into your town and buy everything in your whole town. Maximum number of towns allowed on your server. Obviously, you can set that to how large your server is. If you've got a 2 gig or 1 gig server, you'd want that fairly low, because there wouldn't be too many people. But if you weren't too worried about limits, just whack that up to something interesting. Minimum number of plots any town home plot must be from the next town. This is, as I said in the video, you don't want to be, or the last video, you don't want to be right next to the neighbouring town. So you can set that as the minimum distance in blocks from the next town block. So he wouldn't be able to build, or you wouldn't be able to build within 5 blocks of another town. You can actually set this to quite a lot if you want. If you want towns very spaced out, or again, you can set that to nothing if you want them quite close. If you're looking for large towns, that might be quite good to set that quite high. Otherwise, you limit your player's expansion. Maximum distance between home blocks. This will force people to build together. So if you're looking for a more wall-based server, you don't want people like a million miles away, do you? So if you set that as, I don't know, 50, then they'd have to build within 50 blocks of another town. So it would force them to grow a bit closer and give you a bit more activity if you're looking to fight or battle. Okay, default here for the town block ratio is 8, which means for every player you get in your town, you can have 8 more blocks. So it's in the mayor's interest to try and get as many people to join as possible and to get as many blocks as possible. Obviously, again, you can alter that to something higher. Now, this next one is quite important. This you will need to do, as it says here, is only when you first install Towny. If you start messing about this afterwards, it will mess up everything. So what this is, it's how big a town plot size is. So 16 is the default, which means the default plot size is 16 blocks long by 16 blocks wide, which is quite a good size. You can fit it on a hillside, you can fit it in a small area. This is the area claimed when someone claims a plot. As it says here, it goes from bedrock to clouds, and that's the size. If you set that at 16, start your server, people start claiming all the blocks at 16, and then you think, well, it's a little bit small. What I'll do is I'll knock it up to 19, or even worse, let's put it to 30. Look at that, or 32. That'd be a nice round number, wouldn't it? Twice the size. What that now does is each block actually now contains 4 town blocks, because it's, instead of being 16 by 16, now 32 by 32. So if you had somebody that claimed a plot next to somebody else, their plot would immediately clash and go straight over the other people's plots that were next door. So you've got to be really careful about changing this afterwards. Here we go. It'll mess up the caching as well. It'll also, it basically just screw everything up. So set that before you start. Try and decide what you're doing. On Byte we use 16 by 16, which seems to be perfectly okay. You can also set the limit people can purchase to more, which means they can buy a bigger area. Not a problem, but you cannot alter this once done. So if you do a huge, like 84 by 84 block for each claim, you'll find people claiming the half the map in one go. So just be careful. Set that before you go. Default new world headings. These are actually taken by the new world once it's created. I think after it's created, altering these will have no effect on any new world. So again, best to create these to your liking before before you start messing about and running a server. Revert on unclaim. This is the bit where it disappears back to a natural state after it is deleted. Obviously they can edit it to true to false, so if you don't want it to be revert on unclaimed, so when you unclaim a town it will stay where it is and it won't just disappear, you can set that to false. You can also, if it is true, you can set the speed to 1 block per second to stop huge server lag when a town disappears. You set it to 100, that's 100 blocks a second disappearing. You might find a problem. You've also got here block ignore. These will not be regenerated once destroyed, so you can customize that as well. This one I find quite interesting. Wild revert on mob explosion. So if you've got an amazing creeper dossing around next to your house, and it comes along and blows a hole inside of your house, but you're in the wild, if this is set to true, this will heal and restore the big hole in the ground, and that will do it for all of these entities here: Ender Dragon, Fireball, TNT, Creepers, etc. But there'll be a 20-second delay before it even starts, so there'll still be a hole when you leave, but once you've left, it'll quietly reinstate itself while you're not there, which is quite good. Saves you having the whole of the, if you've got a popular server, the whole of the wild being totally trashed by creeper explosions. Right, one of the most important parts of this is plugin interfacing, which is how the plugin actually interacts with the file structure to save what you're doing, which is absolutely essential. Otherwise, every time you rebooted, all your towns would disappear. So, default is flatfile, which is, if you look up here under Towny, you've got the data folder. All the stuff saved under text files. This is flatfile. You've also got several other options like mysql and SQLite and H2. I never used H2, so I'm not sure what that is. But if you want to move between them, for example, if you wanted to move to SQLite, what you could do is change these settings here. When you start your server, it'll load using that setting. So load from the flat file into memory, do whatever you like. When you shut down, it'll save back into flat file format. If you wanted to swap, you'd shut your server down. Say we're changing to SQLite. I'll just change that. So we'll start the server up. It'll load from flat file, and then we'll shut the server down. It'll save it all back to SQLite, and then we can change that to SQLite as well. And then we'll start the server up. It'll start from there, save to there, start from there, save to there. So that's the way of doing it. If you want to then change it back to flat file, you do exactly, or say you want to change it to MySQL, for example. You then, obviously, you'd fill in the details here of your database, where your database was, and you'd shut your server down, change that, load by starting the server, shut the server down, which will save to SQL, and then you can change that one, and then it'll everything be done through SQL. So importing and exporting, you don't need to do anything clever, just swap those around as you shut and start up the server, and it'll do it through the plugin itself. SQL database needs obviously all the different details here, host names, etc. What I've done with the Byte server is I've actually put it onto a normal hosting account, which seems to work okay. I've got a normal like MySQL database, which is used for running WordPress, etc. And I've just used that to load and save the data from the server, and that seems to work okay. Nothing special there. So that's quite good. If you're using flatfile, here's the amount of days to delete backups. If you look here under Towny folder, you've got the backup folder, and it will save into zip files here. If I dig down, obviously you've got all the data and settings, so it backs up data and settings in these zip files, which is quite handy. Obviously after 90 days it'll remove old backups, so it doesn't take up too much space. And you can change the backup file extension here. I don't know, valid entries are zip or nothing, so you've got a great choice there. I just keep with zip, to be honest. You can open it in Windows, it's all good. Don't need any 7-zip or anything to get into it. Right, interfacing between other plugins, you've got, you can interface with Tekkit as well, and Industrial Craft by putting entries in here for fake residents. If you're using the Essentials plugin for Bukkit, you can change that to true, which will also import the cooldowns for teleporting, which is good, stop people PvP logging or TPing home. These are the supported economies, so you can use economy, boss economy, essentials economy, etc, etc. Just make sure that's set to true. It is by default, but if you want people to buy stuff, put that on. If you want people to just grab whatever, change it to false. Below here we've got using questioner. Now this is the one we downloaded as well with the Towny jar. It's quite important, as in you don't want to be added unwittingly to a town and then build for the pleasure. So I advise that was on true. And below here you can see I've changed these because I had a problem with MCMMO. The accept command /accept collided with an MCMMO. So here you can actually change the accept command to something different. So taccept. So it'll ask you whether you want to t-accept or t-deny the invitation, which is quite handy. So if you get in conflict, because accept seems to be a very, very popular command with all plugins, you can alter it there. I like plugins that do that. Here you can put in whether you're using permissions or not. And do you want to rely on the Towny settings, or do you want to use a permissions plugin? That's quite good if you want to add extra permissions onto mayor ranks as well. And obviously there you can see group manager, pex, permission, bukkit permissions, whatever, etc, etc. You can use the whole lot. I'd advise that true if you've got them on. Right, below here we've got the wilderness settings. These are the actual settings that will take effect in unclaimed areas in the world. So if we look here, we've got build, destroy, item use, and ignore and switch. Basically, if you want your users to come on and have a look around, build or do and chop down whatever they like in the world, you can put all these as true. If you want your wild to remain pristine and immaculate, keep them on false. That means no one can build. This does make it a little bit awkward for new players, as they will get spawned into a world where they can't do anything, which might be a little bit off-putting at first. They need to claim a town first to actually get started. On Byte we've got these all as true, so you can do anything in the wild really, but a town's a protected area. With the ignore list here, you might notice that's logs, leaves, etc. This is the items they can actually destroy. So even if these are on false, they cannot destroy or build, they can still destroy these blocks. So you can use them for like tree farms. So if you've got ores that you want mined, or excuse me, or anything like that, you can set those in the ignore list, and they'll be able to mine trees, but they won't be able to dig big holes. So it will keep your keep your wild fairly pristine. Default town plot flags. Now these are the way. With these settings, you can choose how people interact with your town. So the first bits here are, I think, are plot. Plot items. So residents. So that's your plot and the plot you manage. So a default plot. Anybody you add as your friend can, with the /res friend add, I believe, or res add friend player name. They can build in your plot, destroy in your plot, use items, and switch. So be careful who you add as a friend, because they do have full control of your plot. Allies, as in allied residents from allied towns or nations, they can do only use and only switch in your plot. They can't build or destroy. And outsiders, who's everybody else, can do nothing in your plot. So there we go. That's the standard settings. I wouldn't alter those too much unless you wanted to give less perms on the friend or more perms on the ally. Below this we've got the town perms, which is exactly the same but for towns. So a default person can PvP in towns if it's set, can't set fire to anything, can't cause explosions, and has no mobs in a default town. A resident, however, can do all of those things in a town. Ideally, I think I usually set the build and the destroy to false, because you don't want residents of your town griefing the place up. Setting those two to false would mean they cannot build in the town, but they can still claim a plot and build in their plot. I would save the build permissions for chosen assistants. As you can see here, allies can't do anything in your town, and neither can outsiders. You could possibly set ally to use or switch, which enables them to look into chests and open doors, which is quite good if you want to maintain friendship. For server towns as well, I usually put item use and item switch as true, so they can come in, they can use chest shops, they can look around server towns. Otherwise they can't do any of this. Okay, war. Now, there are two ways of conducting a war in Towny. The first way is the general war settings, where an admin has to come in and type in /townyadmin toggle war, which puts everyone into war mode. During the war, after it's been activated by the server admin, Nations fight each other. Towns without a nation are not included, cannot score points and can't have their town blocks griefed. Only people in nations can. The nations who don't want to take part can also pay a neutrality fee. So have a look, where is it? Towns are neutral true, so that turns on or off whether the towns who don't have nations are neutral, so you can turn that on. But since they're at a disadvantage being on their own, it's probably best for that to be on true. Also, you've got here, if the town monarch or the nation monarch or king dies, the nation is removed from the war. So you can actually get rid of the nation if the monarch or the emperor is killed. Also here, this is quite an important one, will players be able to break or place blocks in enemy plots during a war? So you can actually turn griefing on or off there. A town block takes damage every 5 seconds and enemies in it. There we go. Normal town block 60 and the home town block 120. A town block uses HP by enemy residents standing within the town block, and when a town block has lost all its HP, the town which the attacker belongs to gains 1 town block and points towards their war score. A town can be knocked out of a war when their home block falls or their mayor is killed. And a nation can be knocked out if its capital city is knocked out or the king is killed, so keep your king safe. Points in the war given out as 1 town block stolen, 10 points for the town knocked out, 100 points for the nation, and 1 point for each kill you do. This is the amount that's taken from you every time you get killed, so obviously that's gone up from 1 to 200, so that's pretty disastrous if you do get killed, so look out. And the amount taken from the losing town for each plot lost is 100 as well, so it's a good way of losing lots of money. This Towny War. And the minimum height at which a player must stand to count as an attacker is 60. I think this is to stop you mining down at bedrock and attacking underneath where no one can see you and sneakily claiming the town plot. So you've got to be on the surface to actually for it to actually apply. This is quite a good way of doing it. Obviously, it does involve a lot of griefing, which could actually cause people to lose property. So if you didn't want to do that, this probably isn't the setting for you. And there should be somewhere around here. There should be a neutrality. Perhaps I think we set that above in the economy, didn't we? The neutral payment. The second method of waging war, is my favourite method. This is the flag war settings. Basically, here instead of instead of an admin having to toggle it on and off, this is done via the player. So what they'd have to do is you'd have to declare war basically on another nation. So if I do this, if you literally type in nation, /nation enemy, if I can type today, add nation, the last nation being the nation you want to add. This declares that nation as an enemy rather than an ally. Not only does it come up with a very intimidating message saying you are now an enemy of this nation, it also enables the flag war settings to take effect. Now, to get it to work, initially you have to have this allow attacks set to true. By default, I think it's false, but it won't work if it is set to false. You need to have that as true to enable the flag war. Basically, the method of attack here, you can't attack nations at neutral, you can't attack while in a neutral nation, and you can only place flags on the surface, which is the setting down here, to stop you sort of skulking around in caves while claiming the town on the top. What you've got to do, if resident or nation A is attacking nation B, nation A would have to run forwards and place a flag in the plot of the nation B. Once that's placed there, they must wait for a certain time, defined here, waiting time 1 minute, and then a block of wall will appear on top of the flagpole, because that's what it denotes. A fence is a flagpole. Once that's there, you can then initiate, there you go, there's the fence, so you place the fence, wait 1 minute, and then a block of wool will appear. To initiate the attack, you then need to put a light block or a torch on top. This will show a beacon. They're the beacon settings, but we don't have to alter those. Whoops. So ignore those. We can alter these if you want different things, but generally it works straight out of the box. once attacked, the wall will stay green, I believe it is, and then it'll go to red. If it's red, the area is now captured. To defend, defenders need to teleport to the town being attacked and look out for a beacon which is generated on the attacked plot, and then go and try and destroy the wall on top to claim it back. With the settings here, you can actually set it to only attack borders true. Excuse me. This stops people running to the centre of your town and claiming your home plot. They've got to attack from the outside of the town inwards, like real life, as it were. You also can set how many people need to be online from the town that's being attacked. So you can't attack towns with no one on and start claiming all the blocks. If there's people online, then you can attack. So that setting there, for example, you've got 5 people. You have to have 5 people from that town on before you can actually attack it, which just makes it fair. So they don't come on week after and everything's blown up. Again, this section here is the same, but from the nation. So you've got to have minimum players for the nation. I think we better set that probably the same as the town, because you can't have more town members than nation members. And maximum active flags per player. So how many plots you can put flags in at once. One's a good number, so you can claim 1 plot at a time. And below here you've got the Warzone block permissions. If you want pig griefing to happen, you can actually control it so it's not a complete disaster, but you can do so. For example, doors can be broken, but nothing else, for example, which is quite good. You can set fire to things, maybe you can switch, or you can blow up. Bear in mind this is still a work in progress, so might be a few bits that need tweaking still. Also, I need to quickly add that the beacon that's above is actually a block with coloured wool in, not a beacon that you can build. It was made before the actual beacons came out. And it will change colour from, I think it's from green to blue to orange to red. Once it's red, the location will be captured by the attacking town. For the actual attack itself, there is a few economic charges. Attacking has a cost. Whenever a player places a flag, they are charged. The player is also checked to see if they can afford the repercussions of a failed attack before it actually allows you to place the file. If the defender breaks the flag, the attacker is then thrown out of the region and forced to pay a fee. So there's another charge there. If an attack is successful, you will then be charged depending on the situation. There's 2 paths here. First of all, there is charges for home blocks and normal plots, which you can set, and also the charge will be a pillage fee, where the defending town pays the flag bearer, or it will be a rebuilding cost, where the flag bearer pays the town under attack. That gives you 2 different types of modes you can play. I shall quickly see if I can find the settings. Let's have a look. Where are we? Here we go. Here's the settings under the economy transfers during war settings. Amount charged to place a war flag, paid to the server, so that's not actually paid to anybody, is 10. For example, on this one, you can change that to discourage or encourage war. Amount paid to the flag bearer, from the attacker to the defender after defending the area. So if the defense is successful, you can get the attacker then to pay the town it's just attacked 100 for reparations. Defending the town pays the attacking, spelled wrong, attacking flag bearer, grammar Nazi, if the town attack is successful and the attacker can't pay, the attack is cancelled. So if the attacker wins, you can capture, I don't know, say 250 off the defending town. You can actually do that as a rebuild fee, so you could say after attacking you capture it, but you need to rebuild it. So you can put a negative in there, so the attacker has to pay to revamp the area after he's just knackered it all. And again at the bottom here, same as the town block 1 here, but for the home block. So you make that a special reward for a town losing the town block. And there we go. That's Towny War, and that concludes our tutorial on Towny. Sorry, there's quite a lot of talky in this one, but unfortunately that's the way of the video. It's a configuration file walkthrough. I'll put some more links to particular sections in the description below, so you can dot around to different areas in here without having to watch the whole thing if you've one particular area you're not too clear on. Any questions, pop them in the comments below. I'll be quite happy to try and answer them if I can. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Thanks very much for watching.